Obviously, looking to for us offensively improve from what we did this past game. This last weekend, we talked about it on third down in the run game and early down and distances. Did not have the production that we want. So for us to go to Michigan State and play a good team like these guys are, we're going to have to improve in those areas. We're going to have to block better offensively up front. We're going to have to run the ball to get ourselves into manageable third downs. If we don't, we're going to end up in similar scenarios. But when it comes time to pass the ball, we got to do a good job up front, identifying pressures and making sure that we're in the right protection. If we can do those things, then we got a chance to be successful.
Drew, with the rushing attack, I guess what do you expect to be able to include Martin more this week? And just the overall big picture, those four guys only have one touchdown between them. Does that surprise you, given kind of the preseason expectations?
A little bit. And there's we got I think up front. I think if we're going to be a line of scrimmage football team. The five guys up front, and it doesn't really matter really who you are. The five guys up front got to play really well. And if you're playing with a tight end in the core, the tight end's included in that. We got to play well up front. When we get pressures identified, we get them. We see them. We make the right calls. Good things happen. And when we don't, for any football team, doesn't matter what you do or where you are. If you don't, you're not going to have much of a chance. So surprisingly, yes, there's only one touchdown. That could be for a lot of different reasons, but I think that run game emphasis has got to come back the way it was 2 games ago, and the production's got to be there if we're going to be a successful football team. So I think for all of those guys, running backs by committee, they're going to get all the credit, when the rushing yards happen and rushing touchdowns happen. But I think for our 5 guys up front, those are the ones that deserve the credit when it happens, and those are the guys we're generally hard on when it doesn't. The running backs are really I'm not going to say that they're a byproduct of that fact, but because they do make plays. But without those 5 or 6 guys ahead of them, obviously that no one's Superman. So again, those guys, we need all 5 or 6 of those guys if we're including the tight end to play well for us.
Coach Hatch mentioned he was trying to use Tyler Oden in every game. Was there just not a situation that presented itself last week, and is that still the plan moving forward?
Yeah, for you got to find the right times to slide Tylen in there. In the run game or the pass game, and so that opportunity wasn't there. What we had talked about as a staff, and so just throwing him in there just to throw him in there didn't make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, the plan is still forward to keep using him every game.
Drew, I know Gio's a pretty level-headed guy from when we've talked to him, but do you have to say anything to him this week? I mean, going back to Michigan, obviously going to have people there, and I guess maybe Michigan doesn't look like Michigan State recruited him, but I mean, just emotionally, do you have to talk to him about that?
We hadn't talked about it yet. I'm sure he's probably going to be the player that uses the most tickets on the team, but I think for him, I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting to play in front of he plays in front of his family. His family comes up to a bunch of our games. But I think, he'll be in front of some people that haven't seen him play in person for a while, and I think that's exciting for him. I do think that he does a good job of managing his emotions. He does a very, very good job of that, and you mentioned the word level-headed. He is, and I think that's a calming force, I think, within our unit. So I do think that his emotions are going to probably be a tad bit higher because of that, but I think that he'll do a good job of doing exactly what we ask him to do and remain focused on the task at hand.
Drew, going back to the running backs and talking about pressures and movements Indiana posed, is there more you can do with screens and things? I mean, aside from Justin Goodwin, there hasn't been much pass catching with their running backs this season.
I don't know. Maybe you noticed or not. I don't know. We threw a few screens in the game. We tried to throw one to Goody. We got too much pressure right there, so the ball ended up behind him. And then we threw we threw actually 2 more on third downs to try and slow down some of that pressure. They did a good job with one of their pressures. They had the defensive end looping all the way across, actually snuffed that screen out. So yeah, absolutely, we can slow down. But to be honest with you, identifying pressure is not as hard as it sounds on paper. It's a matter of focus and your discipline and where you're putting your eyes. And if you're going to be a successful football team offensively, everybody's got to be on that same page. And where you put your eyes, your eye discipline. Coach Ash uses the term eye violators on defense. If you don't have your eyes in the right place, okay, you're an eye violator. And you can't have eye violators on either side of the ball, and that includes special teams. So, when they started heating us up, you can't shy away from that fact. That's just a part of the game, and we got to keep our eyes in the right place and be disciplined with our fundamentals, techniques, and the right communication. And those problems should resolve themselves.
Michigan State defensively, what kind of challenges do they present?
Michigan State, they're battling through injuries right now, a lot of them. And, so we'll see who comes in, who's going to play this game. There's a lot of question marks, I think, right now. But you look at the history of Michigan State's defense, they've been very, very good against everybody they played. And it doesn't matter what style of offense you've played, whether you've been all empty sets, or you put all 11 in the box. So they're going to be a disciplined defense. They stop the run very well. They're always in the right run fits. And it hasn't mattered who's been in there, which of the Bola brothers has been in there all the way, and they've got Malik McDowell, number 4, that's playing well for them, who I think is a really good player. So I think for us, we have to be, like I said, just in identifying pressures. They do bring pressure. They bring pressure out of the same their base alignment. But I think if we can do a good job of just keeping our vision up and communicating the right way, I think we should be fine. But they're not a team that's going to allow a bunch of big plays. They're going to force you to play this game consistently. They're going to tackle well, and they're going to force you to continue to move the ball down the field and beat them playing their game. And they're great at it, and they've been great at it for they've been there for 13 years. So credit to those guys for sure.
I know it can sometimes be difficult to single out individual linemen, but Tariq Cole, how has he played as the blindside protector so far this year? There was some buzz out there nationally that he's one of the more underrated players in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Tariq, I mean, you look at, and I'm going to start with both of our tackles. They're both young. One of them in experience, Kamal being much younger than Tariq from that standpoint. But Tariq has played well. I think for Tariq to continue to improve, I think there's always going to be an experience factor, especially in this league. When you're coming out of playing the scout team defense is not the same as when you're getting rushed by some of the defensive ends in this league. So he's got to continue to improve. His fundamentals have improved dramatically, but he's still got a ways to go, I think, in terms of being a complete, solid football player. But I do think that the talent is there. I do think that the drive, the motivation is there for him to be a really good football player down the road. And he's got to continue to work. He's a kid that he takes coaching and applies it, and he goes out and practices really, really hard. And so I think if he continues to do that, he's got a chance to be that blindside tackle that people talk about as an underrated guy that down the road will turn some heads. So he's been great for us. He hasn't been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and especially I talk about some of that stuff out there, seeing edge pressure on the perimeter. He's got to do a good job because those tackles are the eyes and ears for the O-line, especially out there on the edge. So from that standpoint, he's got to continue to improve, but he's doing a nice job. Appreciate you guys.